What happens when the world gives you everything at 14, only to take the keys to your career away the moment the cameras stop rolling? In 2018, Courtney Hadwin wasn't just a contestant on America's Got Talent. She was a global phenomenon, a teenage hurricane that seemed destined to redefine the music industry. Her performance of Hard to Handle didn't just earn a golden buzzer. It ignited a firestorm of expectations that few human beings could ever actually live up to. But as we move into 2026, the investigation into her missing years reveals a narrative that is far more complex than a simple rise to stardom. After the confetti settled, Courtney was whisked away into the high-stakes world of major record labels, specifically Simon Cowell's Syco Music in a joint venture with Arista Records. On paper, it looked like the ultimate win. In reality, it was the beginning of a period of intense industry-enforced silence. For years, fans were left wondering why one of the most viral talents in history was barely releasing music. Our deep dive into the industry archives suggests that the label was struggling with how to market a prodigy who refused to fit into the typical pop star mold. While the public wanted the raw, unpolished energy of that first audition, the corporate machine was reportedly obsessed with sanding down the edges to make her more palatable for mainstream radio. This resulted in a state of creative paralysis, where dozens of tracks were recorded but never saw the light of day, effectively keeping Courtney in a golden cage, where she was famous enough to be recognized, but restricted from actually being an artist. The silence wasn't a choice. It was a consequence of a major label tug-of-war over her image and sound, leaving a young girl caught in the middle of a corporate identity crisis that nearly derailed her future entirely. Behind the closed doors of high-rise executive offices, a quiet war was being waged for the soul of Courtney Hadwin's music, and the shy girl was the only one willing to fight back. By 2021 and 2022, the tension between Courtney's artistic vision and her label's commercial demands reached a breaking point. While rumors of a debut album circulated annually, nothing materialized. Insiders suggest that the controversy wasn't about bad behavior or lack of talent, but rather a fundamental disagreement on authenticity. The industry wanted a polished product, but Courtney, maturing quickly under the spotlight, was gravitating toward a much darker, grittier rock aesthetic. It was during this period that Courtney began her silent rebellion. She started using her social media platforms to drop hints of a much heavier sound, one that didn't align with the bubblegum rock image the suits were trying to manufacture. The speculation intensified when Courtney finally parted ways with the major label system. This move was initially viewed by some critics as a career-ending offing of her mainstream potential, but in hindsight, it was her first true act of independence. Walking away from a multi-million-dollar machine is a gamble that would break most veteran artists, yet Courtney chose the uncertainty of the independent path over the security of a label that didn't understand her. This era was defined by a total media blackout, as she worked to legally untangle herself from contracts that threatened to keep her music shelved indefinitely. It was a high-stakes game of chicken with the industry's biggest players, and as 2026 has shown us, Courtney was the one who didn't blink. She spent this time in relative obscurity, not because she had lost her spark, but because she was busy building a new foundation, one that wasn't built on viral moments, but on the hard-earned right to own her own voice and her own masters. When the smoke finally cleared from her legal battles, the girl who walked out of the wreckage bore no resemblance to the teen the world thought they knew. 2025 marked the official return of Courtney Hadwin, but it wasn't the comeback anyone expected. She didn't return with a catchy radio hit or a polished ballad. Instead, she unleashed Little Miss Jagged, an album that felt more like an exorcism than a debut. From a news reporter's perspective, this wasn't just a release. It was a rebranding that sent shockwaves through the industry. The aesthetic was avant-garde, dark, and unapologetically rock and roll. Gone were the comparisons to being a Janis Joplin impersonator. Courtney was establishing a new identity, one that embraced the jagged parts of her personality that the labels had tried so hard to hide. The lyrics delved into themes of isolation, the pressure of early fame, and the feeling of being a product in a factory. This shift sparked intense speculation among music historians and fans alike. Was this a calculated move to gain edgy credibility, or was this the real Courtney Hadwin finally being allowed to breathe? The response was polarizing. While mainstream critics struggled to categorize her new sound, a devoted cult following began to form, drawn to the raw honesty and the middle finger she was effectively waving at the traditional music establishment. The album's success wasn't measured in Billboard charts, but in its cultural impact. It became a rallying cry for independent artists everywhere who felt stifled by corporate interference. Recent reports indicate that the album was recorded in a series of guerrilla sessions, often in small, independent studios away from the prying eyes of the industry elite. This dark rebirth served notice to the world. Courtney Hadwin was no longer a contestant seeking approval. She was a sovereign artist with a message that was as loud as it was uncomfortable for the people who once tried to control her. In the current landscape of 2026, the question isn't whether Courtney Hadwin can sing. It's whether the industry will ever forgive her for succeeding without them. As we stand here in April 2026, Courtney Hadwin is currently in the midst of an extensive grassroots tour across the UK and Europe. But this isn't a tour of arenas and stadium lights. She's intentional about playing in intimate, historic venues where the sweat and the sound are real. Our reporters have tracked her progress from the Camden Assembly to small, independent festivals, and the transformation is staggering. However, the journey hasn't been without its modern-day challenges. There have been lingering rumors of industry sabotage, speculations that because she bypassed the traditional gatekeepers, she has faced uphill battles with streaming algorithms and major festival bookings. Some call it the independent tax, a silent penalty for those who refuse to play the corporate game. Despite these hurdles, Courtney's resilience has become her greatest asset. She has leveraged the power of direct-to-fan engagement, bypassing the need for a PR machine. Her recent live performances have been described as cathartic, with Courtney often spending hours after shows connecting with fans who followed her from the AGT days into this new, darker era. There are also whispers regarding her personal life and the toll this journey has taken, but Courtney has remained fiercely private, letting the music address the accusations and speculations that often follow viral stars. By 2026, she has effectively navigated the shadows of her past, turning the controversy of her rebranding into a badge of honor. She is no longer the girl who was too shy to speak. She is a woman who has found that the loudest way to speak is through the art that others tried to silence. The story of Courtney Hadwin in 2026 is a masterclass in survival, a reminder that in the digital age, a golden buzzer is just the beginning, and sometimes the real victory is found in the moments when the cameras aren't looking. Looking back at the 7-year odyssey from a viral audition to an independent icon, one has to wonder, was the silence the greatest gift she ever gave herself? As we conclude our investigative look at Courtney Hadwin's trajectory, the final verdict is one of hard-won triumph. The missing years between 2018 and 2025 weren't a sign of failure, but a necessary incubation period. In a world that demands constant content and immediate results, Courtney's decision to wait and to fight has set a new precedent for reality TV alumni. She has successfully transitioned from a moment into a movement, proving that a career built on authenticity has a much longer shelf life than one built on a viral gimmick. By 2026, the rumors of her career's demise have been thoroughly exposed as premature. Instead, what we see is an artist who has matured with a level of grit that is rare in the modern pop landscape. She has faced the pressures of fame, the weight of legal battles, and the shocking reality of the industry's dark side, and she has come out the other side with her integrity intact. The The takeaway for the viewer is clear. Fame is easy, but staying true to oneself is the hardest job in the world. As Courtney continues her 2026 tour, the air of mystery that once surrounded her disappearance has been replaced by a sense of awe at her resilience. She has turned the untold story of her struggles into the very fuel for her success. While we may never know the full extent of the SHT she had to deal with behind the scenes, the music she produces now tells us everything we need to know. Courtney Hadwin didn't just survive the spotlight, she learned how to control it. And as the final notes of her latest set ring out in a crowded, dimly lit club in London, it's obvious that this isn't the end of her story. It's just the opening act. The world is finally listening to Courtney Hadwin, not because a judge told them to, but because she gave them no other choice.